Dishonest with me.
No.
I want you to look at this face, and I want you to be dishonest with me. You're trying to sound like a fool? You sound like a fool. Let me tell you something about rules. I have rules in my courtroom for a reason. They are not suggestions. They are not optional. They are not up for debate. But some people think rules do not apply to them. The woman who walked into my courtroom that day thought she was above every rule ever written. Her name is Victoria. She is 36 years old. Her father is an ambassador, a man who represents his country at the highest level, a man who meets with presidents and prime ministers, a man who has never been told no. She walked into my courtroom like she was walking into a fashion show. Her dress was designer. Her bag was worth more than my first car. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. Her attitude was perfectly terrible. The ambassador's daughter sat down at the defense table, crossed her legs, and looked at my courtroom like it was beneath her. Behind her walked her lawyer, a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase that probably cost $5,000. On the other side of the courtroom sat the plaintiff, a woman named Rachel. Rachel is 41 years old. She is a restaurant manager. She works 12-hour shifts on her feet. She has 2 children and a mortgage and no famous father. The restaurant manager showed up in a clean blouse and comfortable shoes. She had no lawyer. She had a folder filled with receipts and the exhausted look of someone who has been fighting for way too long. I looked at the ambassador's daughter, then I looked at the restaurant manager, and right there, before a single word was spoken, I knew exactly what kind of day this was going to be. Let me tell you what this case was about. Rachel was suing Victoria for $8,000 6 months ago. The ambassador's daughter hosted a charity gala at a hotel. Rachel's restaurant catered the event. Rachel worked 18 hours that day. She supervised 50 staff members. She served 500 guests. She made sure everything was perfect. At the end of the night, she refused to pay the catering bill, not because the food was bad, not because the service was poor, not because anything was wrong. She refused to pay because Rachel was wearing flats. That is right, an ambassador's daughter refused to pay a catering bill because the restaurant manager wore comfortable shoes to work an 18-hour shift. Rachel had worn flats because she knew she would be on her feet all day. The ambassador's daughter said flats were unprofessional. She said flats ruined the aesthetic of her gala. She said Rachel should have worn heels for 18 hours. That was her defense. So there I was sitting on my bench looking at this woman in her designer dress, and I said, Ms. Victoria, can you explain to me why you refused to pay this woman for her work? She flipped her hair. Your Honor, she said, her voice dripping with entitlement. The aesthetic of my gala was ruined by her footwear. She looked like she was going to the gym, not a charitable event. I blinked. Let me understand this. You are refusing to pay $8,000 because of shoes? She nodded. Correct. The courtroom went silent. I looked at Rachel. Mrs. Rachel, what do you say? The restaurant manager stood up. Her voice was steady. Your Honor, she said, I worked 18 hours that day. I supervised 50 staff members. I served 500 guests. I did my job perfectly. She pointed at the ambassador's daughter. She is refusing to pay me because I wore flats to protect my feet. I looked at Victoria. Ms. Victoria, do you have any other complaints about the catering? No. The food was good. Yes. The service was good. Yes. The guests were happy. Yes. So the only problem is her shoes. She crossed her arms. They were beige. I leaned back in my chair. Ms. Victoria, the color of her shoes does not matter. The style of her shoes does not matter. The height of her heels does not matter. She stared at me. What matters is that she did her job and you owe her $8,000. The ambassador's daughter stood up. My father is an ambassador, she said. Her voice was shaking with rage. My father has hosted presidents. My father has dined with royalty. My father has more power in his pinky finger than you have in your entire body. I did not say anything. You cannot talk to me like that, she continued. You are a TV judge. You are not real. The bailiff moved forward. I held up my hand. Let her speak. She stepped closer to my bench. Do you know who I am? She said. I looked at her. I know exactly who you are, Ms. Victoria. She smirked. You are someone who is about to be held in contempt of court. Her smirk disappeared. What I said. You have broken 3 courtroom rules already. She shook her head. No, I have not. Rule number 1, I said. No standing and shouting at the judge. She sat down quickly. Rule number 2, no interrupting the court. Her mouth closed. Rule number 3, and this is the one that is going to cost you. She stared at me. No cell phones in my courtroom. Her face went white. I looked at her hand. She was holding her phone. She had been recording the entire hearing. Ms. Victoria, I said, give me your phone. No, I said, give me your phone now. She handed it to the bailiff. I looked at the phone. You have been recording this hearing without permission. That is a violation of court rules. That is a violation of the law. Her lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client did not know. Your client is an ambassador's daughter. I said she has been in courtrooms before. She knows the rules. The lawyer sat down. I looked at her. Ms. Victoria, you just made a very big mistake. But that was not the worst part, not even close, because what happened next even I did not see coming. The ambassador's daughter was shaking. Her designer dress was wrinkled from gripping the table. Her perfect hair was falling out of place. Her perfect makeup was starting to smear. Ms. Victoria, I said, do you understand what you have done? She shook her head. You recorded this hearing without permission. That is illegal. That is contempt of court. That is a crime. Her lawyer stood up again. Your Honor, my client is willing to delete the recording. It is too late for that, I said. I handed the phone to the bailiff. Give this to the district attorney. She screamed. No, I slammed my gavel. Sit down. She sat. Now let us talk about your lies. I pulled out a stack of papers. These are text messages between you and the restaurant manager. Her face went white. The first message from the restaurant manager to you, Ms. Victoria, here is the invoice for the catering. The second message from you to her, I am not paying. The third message from her to you, why not? The fourth message from you to her, your manager wore flats. Flats are unprofessional. I looked up at her. Ms. Victoria, you admitted in writing that you refused to pay because of shoes. She did not answer. You admitted that the food was good. You admitted that the service was good. You admitted that the guests were happy. She still did not answer. So the only reason you are not paying is because a woman who worked 18 hours wore comfortable shoes. The ambassador's daughter looked at her lawyer. Her lawyer looked at the floor. I turned to the restaurant manager. Mrs. Rachel, I am awarding you $8,000 for the catering bill plus $2,000 for your time plus court costs. The ambassador's daughter stood up. That is over $10,000. You can do math. I said, congratulations, but that is not all. I turned to her. Ms. Victoria, you are also facing charges for recording this hearing without permission. Her lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client has diplomatic immunity. I laughed. Diplomatic immunity? Yes, her father is an ambassador. I leaned forward. Sir, diplomatic immunity applies to ambassadors, not to their daughters who break the law in my courtroom. The lawyer sat down. The ambassador's daughter started crying. Please, she said, please, do not do this. I leaned back in my chair. Ms. Victoria, you should have thought about that before you broke my rules. The doors opened to police officers walked in. She screamed, but that was not the worst part, not even close, because what happened next made even my bailiff gasp. The ambassador's daughter was screaming at her lawyer, do something, you are supposed to protect me. The lawyer tried to calm her down. She pushed him away. I slammed my gavel. Ms. Victoria, sit down right now. She ignored me. She kept screaming. I slammed my gavel again. Sit down. She sat. Her chest was heaving. Her eyes were wild. Ms. Victoria, I said, you have made a very serious mistake. She looked at me. You thought your father's name would protect you? You thought your money would protect you? You thought your designer dress would protect you? She did not answer. You were wrong. I turned to the police officers. Officers, please take Ms. Victoria into custody. No, she screamed. The officers handcuffed her as they led her toward the door. I said, wait. They stopped. I looked at her. Ms. Victoria, do you have anything to say? She looked at me. Her eyes were filled with tears. My father will hear about this, she said. Her voice was shaking. My father will destroy you. I smiled. Your father is already on a plane, Ms. Victoria. She blinked. What, your father has been recalled by his government? Her face went white. What did you say? She whispered. I said your father has been recalled. His diplomatic status has been revoked. No, yes, he is being investigated for corruption. She started crying harder. And you, Ms. Victoria, you are being investigated for fraud and perjury. She screamed. The officers led her away. The doors closed. The courtroom was silent. I looked at the restaurant manager. Mrs. Rachel, you are free to go. She stood up. Thank you, Your Honor. She walked toward the door, then she stopped. Your Honor, she said. How did you know about her father? I smiled. I read the news. Mrs. Rachel, she left. The courtroom was empty. I turned to the camera, and that is the truth about power. It does not protect you from the truth. The ambassador's daughter thought she was untouchable. She was wrong, but that was not the worst part, not even close. Because what happened next, even I did not see coming. The doors opened. A man walked in, a man in a dark suit. He was tall. His face was serious. Your Honor, he said, my name is Agent Miller. I am with the State Department. I said, Agent Miller, what can I do for you? He walked to my bench. We have been investigating Victoria's father for 2 years. He said, corruption, bribery, money laundering. I nodded. Agent Miller continued, the daughter was involved. She helped her father hide money. She helped her father transfer funds. She helped her father lie to investigators. He handed me a folder. This is the evidence. I opened the folder. Bank records, wire transfers, emails, text messages. Her name was on all of them. I looked up at Agent Miller. Ms. Victoria is not just going to jail for recording my courtroom. No, Your Honor, he said, she is going to jail for conspiracy to commit fraud. I closed the folder. Good. Agent Miller left. The courtroom was silent again. I looked at the restaurant manager. She had come back. And Mrs. Rachel, I said, I thought you left. She walked to the plaintiff's table. I could not leave without saying something. Your Honor, I nodded. Go ahead. She took a deep breath. I have been thinking about what you said about rules. I nodded. My whole life I have followed the rules. I have worked hard. I have done the right thing. She looked at the door where the ambassador's daughter had been led away, and she broke every rule, and she almost destroyed me. She looked at me, but you protected me, Your Honor. You enforced the rules. I smiled. That is my job, Mrs. Rachel. She smiled back. Thank you. She left. The courtroom was empty again. I sat on my bench for a long time thinking about the ambassador's daughter, thinking about her father, thinking about the restaurant manager. She had everything: money, power, a famous father, a designer dress, and she lost it all because she thought rules did not apply to her. The restaurant manager had nothing: no money, no power, no famous father, no designer dress, and she won because she followed the rules. The bailiff handed me a folder, Your Honor. He said, "This just arrived from the State Department." I opened the folder. Inside was a photograph of the ambassador being handcuffed at the airport. I put the photograph down. I looked at the camera. And then I said something that made everyone in the studio silent. The courtroom was quiet. I sat on my bench looking at the photograph of the ambassador in handcuffs. An ambassador, a man who met with presidents, a man who dined with royalty, a man who thought he was untouchable, and he was handcuffed like a common criminal because he thought rules did not apply to him. His daughter thought the same thing. She thought she could record my courtroom. She thought she could refuse to pay a hard-working woman. She thought she could lie under oath. She was wrong. The doors opened. The restaurant manager walked back. And Mrs. Rachel, I said, "I thought you left." She walked to my bench. "I forgot something, Your Honor." "What is that?" She handed me a small box. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it." I opened the box. Inside was a pair of earrings, simple gold earrings. These were my mother's. She said she wore them every day. She was a waitress. She worked on her feet for 40 years. She looked at me. She always said, "Comfortable shoes and simple earrings. That is the secret to a good life." I smiled. "Your mother was wise." She nodded. "She died last year." "I am sorry, Mrs. Rachel." She nodded. "Thank you." She looked at the earrings. "I want you to have them, Mrs. Rachel." "I cannot accept these." "You can." She said, "You reminded me today that rules matter, that hard work matters, that people who follow the rules deserve justice." She smiled. "And you, Judge Judy, you are justice." She turned and walked out. I held the earrings in my hand. I looked at the camera. The restaurant manager had nothing: no money, no power, no famous father, and she gave me her mother's earrings because I told the truth. The bailiff wiped his eyes. "Are you crying?" I asked. "No, Your Honor." He said, "It is dusty in here." I smiled. The doors opened again. A woman walked in, a woman I had never seen before. "Your Honor," she said. "My name is Patricia." I said. "Miss Patricia, what can I do for you?" She walked to my bench. "I am Victoria's nanny." The courtroom went silent. I leaned back in my chair. "Miss Patricia, why are you here?" She took a deep breath. I raised her. She said, "I watched her grow up. I watched her become cruel. I watched her become entitled." She started crying and I did nothing. I said, "Miss Patricia, it is not too late." She looked at me. "Go to her in jail," I said. "Tell her you love her. Tell her you forgive her. Tell her she can change." She nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." She left. The courtroom was silent again. I turned to the camera, and that is the truth about family. The nanny watched her destroy herself, and she did nothing, but today she finally did something. She spoke the truth. The courtroom was quiet. I sat on my bench looking at the earrings. The restaurant manager had given me simple gold earrings from a waitress who worked on her feet for 40 years. Her mother understood something that the ambassador's daughter never understood. Rules matter. Hard work matters. People who follow the rules deserve respect. The ambassador's daughter thought she was above the rules. She was not. The doors opened. The restaurant manager walked in again. "Mrs. Rachel," I said, "I thought you left." She walked to my bench. I could not leave without saying something else. "Your Honor," I nodded. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath. "I have been thinking about what you said about forgiveness." I nodded. "I do not forgive her," she said. "Not yet, maybe not ever, but..." She looked at the door where the ambassador's daughter had been led away. "But I am not going to let her destroy me. I am not going to let her make me bitter. I am not going to let her steal my joy." She looked at me. "She already took 6 months of my life. I will not give her one more day." I smiled. "Mrs. Rachel, you are a remarkable woman." She smiled back. "Thank you, Your Honor." She looked at my ear. "You are wearing my mother's earrings." I nodded. "I will wear them every day." She started crying. "Good," she said. "That is what she would have wanted." She left. The courtroom was empty again. I turned to the camera, and that is the final proof. The ambassador's daughter thought she could break the rules because her father was an ambassador. She was wrong. The rules apply to everyone. Ambassadors, daughters, presidents, janitors, everyone. The bailiff handed me a folder, Your Honor. He said, "This just arrived from the district attorney." I opened the folder. Inside was a letter from the ambassador's daughter. "Dear Judge Judy, I am writing this letter from jail. I am sorry. I am sorry for breaking your rules. I am sorry for recording your courtroom. I am sorry for refusing to pay the restaurant manager. My father is in prison. My money is gone. My friends have abandoned me. I have nothing except the truth, and the truth is I was wrong about everything. Rules are not suggestions. They are not optional. They are not up for debate. They are rules, and I broke them. I am sorry. Sincerely, Victoria." I put the letter down. I looked at the camera. She learned her lesson, but it cost her everything. I picked up my gavel, but I did not bring it down, not yet, because I wanted everyone watching to understand exactly what happened here today. The ambassador's daughter came into my courtroom thinking she was above the rules. She wore designer clothes. She brought an expensive lawyer. She thought her father's name would protect her, and then she broke 3 courtroom rules in under 60 seconds. She stood and shouted at me. She interrupted the court and she recorded the hearing without permission. I shut her down instantly, not because I am mean, not because I am cruel, because rules matter. I looked at the camera. Let me tell you what happened to her. She was convicted of contempt of court, fraud, and perjury. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Her father was convicted of corruption and money laundering. He was sentenced to 15 years in a federal prison. Their money was seized by the government. Their house was sold. Their assets were frozen. She has nothing now, no father, no money, no designer dresses, no expensive lawyer, just a jail cell and the memory of the day she broke the rules in my courtroom. The restaurant manager used the $10,000 to pay off her credit card debt. She still manages the restaurant. She still works 12-hour shifts. She still wears flats, and every morning before work, she looks at her mother's picture and says, "Thank you for teaching me that rules matter." Shocking twist. 1 year after this case, the ambassador's daughter wrote another letter to the restaurant manager. "Dear Rachel, I am not going to ask you to forgive me. I do not deserve it, but I want you to know that you changed my life when I refused to pay you because of your flats. I thought I was being powerful, but I was being pathetic. You worked 18 hours, you did your job perfectly, you followed every rule. And I broke every rule. You are a better person than I will ever be. I am sorry for what I did to you. I am sorry for what I said about your shoes. I am sorry for everything. Sincerely, Victoria." The restaurant manager did not write back, but she kept the letter. She says it reminds her that even the most entitled people can learn. Moral lesson here is what I want you to remember. Rules are not suggestions. They are not optional. They are not up for debate. Rules exist to protect everyone, the rich and the poor, the powerful and the weak, the ambassador and the waitress. The ambassador's daughter had everything: money, power, a famous father, a designer dress, and she lost it all because she thought she was above the rules. The restaurant manager had nothing: no money, no power, no famous father, no designer dress. And she won everything because she followed the rules. The truth always matters, but rules matter to call to action. If you made it to the end of this story, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who thinks rules do not apply to them, because in my courtroom, rules apply to everyone. I am Judge Judy, and this case is closed. The end.